This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to Spouses Talking Houses with husband and wife real estate team Jennifer and Brian Frost. Everything you want to know about buying, selling, investing, and owning property. So let's get real about real estate.
Welcome back to Spouses Talking Houses. I'm Jennifer.
I'm Brian.
And our guest today is Andy Gould.
Hi, happy anniversary, by the way.
Thank you so much. Yeah, 1 year with the podcast.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
I thought I'd surprise you with that, but you knew.
And I'm still here.
Yes, he still has to be dragged kicking and screaming, but I guess you're still under my spell.
Oh, well, okay.
We won't go that far.
Yeah, let's move on to the next topic.
So Andy Gould is with the law firm of Gould Gould and also Monarch Title.
Yes, and owner, attorney of Monarch Title and Old Patriot Title in Londonderry, but these days I kind of situate myself more in Bedford in our Monarch Title office. I've been doing this, I hate to say it's a little over a quarter century now when Old Patriot started, but I've been at it more than that, so I'm dating myself. But it's been a crazy good run, and time flies when you're in the real estate business.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Well, and everything with closings is so deadline oriented.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's been, a roller coaster at times, but not lately. It's been sort of an uphill, market. So it's been fantastic, I think, over the past few years.
So how many closings do you think Monarch has done in the past year?
Well, we average about 100 closings. Lately, it's been a lot of refinancing, but even before that,
100 per month.
Yeah, 100 closings per month. So
yeah, that's a
I'd
lot.
like to have more, but it's very volume based.
Well, we'd have to have more houses.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's the only thing
Yeah.
holding us back. Yeah.
Yeah. So the market is kind of strange right now with inventory and lack thereof.
Oh, yeah. I've never seen it like this before.
Yeah, I
Never
was
seen it like
telling
this before.
somebody that I was talking to a builder, and they're like, "There's no land to build on."
No.
Yeah.
So we're looking at even commercial converting that.
Right,
Sure.
right. Repurposing stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of in the game now.
That's coming, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be because
Right.
office space and retail space demand is probably going to drop a little.
Right.
So if you can repurpose that, that's good for everybody. Win, win, win.
So what's nice is we close in all 3 states, all throughout New Hampshire, we're Maine, and Massachusetts as well.
Great.
So it keeps us pretty diversified.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
busy.
We
Yeah.
use you in Massachusetts
Yeah.
and New Hampshire. I'm not
Right.
in Maine. Just
Thank you.
Okay.
I like to be used in a good way.
So today we're going to get real about crossing the finish line and closing on your real estate transaction. So I'm going to ask, we're going to ask Andy for a little bit of information about just, what the whole actual closing day looks like. But before we get to that, I just thought we'd talk a little bit about our realtor lifestyle. You graciously answered a couple of questions for us over the weekend while you were skiing.
That's right. Yeah,
So
on
that's pretty
manufactured
awesome.
homes.
Exactly.
Well, thanks, but that's popular now.
It
Yes,
is. It
yeah,
is,
yeah.
especially with the cost of building
Right,
and with
right.
materials being hard to get by.
Yeah.
But just the fact that, I don't think most people think that they can call their attorney or an attorney on the weekend, and that's
Sure.
one thing we really appreciate about you and Ken and Monarch Title.
Sure, it's going the extra mile. That's sort of our bread and butter is real estate. We do have a firm and do other things as well. So the key, if you're if you're a buyer, seller, agent, is having a good relationship, obviously, like we do with you, rapport, making it happen, making the sale happen is kind of the key, and not being an obstacle.
Right.
Some I'll say old-time attorneys, it's very, can be somewhat of a difficult run sometimes if they're throwing up roadblocks and things.
Right,
we
right.
Try to get to yes.
They're finding problems, but
Yes,
they're not
yeah.
offering solutions.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
we write with various title insurance companies. That's when you buy, you get title insurance most of the time, or the lender requires it. So having options there is important, not just writing with one title insurance company. There's probably like 5 to 10 nationwide.
Right.
So it's a pretty small market, but having not all title insurance companies allow the deal to go through, so you can go to another title insurance company.
So you write for like 3 of them, or?
We write for all but one that
Okay.
I'm familiar with in this area. We have like 4 that we write for.
And
here.
I know we've had
Yeah.
closings before where you've been able to get an exception so
Yeah.
that we could close on time. The title would still be insured, but there'd be a document that would be coming
Sure.
Within the next 30
Yeah,
days
the
or
garden
something.
variety things that happen that most people don't know about is a seller might have a mortgage and it's not properly released on record at the registry. So there's ways to make that happen through title insurance or holding minimal funds to kind of get it done. All title attorneys, title companies aren't created equal. There is a trend out there of just relying on a short title search, and the title search is how going back in the chain of ownership.
How far you go back?
Well, it's different standards depending on the state.
Yeah, some will just go to the previous owner.
So we do pretty much a full search.
Excellent.
And, we're selling title. That's how I look at it. We're lawyers, but we sell title. That's our, if we don't give good title, we're not really a good company. So I don't like to take shortcuts. So if you're a buyer or seller, a buyer especially, you should be inquiring about the title. There's so much going on for buyers that it gets lost
Easy to overlook.
in the all the stuff going on. So there's no reason that through your agent you could make sure the title was good. And there are even things that are outside title that I always stress if I'm representing a buyer directly, like a cash buyer, to go look at the town records.
Yep.
Because those are not part of a title search.
Right.
So most companies aren't really telling people to do that, and there could be something like a missing permit.
Right.
Or something like that. And title insurance does cover some of that, but
not all of it.
You want to know. I mean, in my own purchase, I had some renovations by the seller, like an addition to the house that he never got approved. He was a selectman.
And he didn't pull permits?
Yeah, so I went to...
What a surprise.
Yeah.
It was easy enough to get him to get that approved. But, you don't want to find that out later when you're selling the property.
No.
And that does happen, but it's hopefully infrequent. I'm not trying to freak anyone out. I just think it's due diligence.
Well, and for the average, in the average transaction, the title search is something that kind of goes on in the background.
Sure.
And somebody says it's okay, and then they just close.
Yeah, most people don't even know what they're getting.
Most people don't even know.
Even a deed, it'll have a plan reference on it, and most people don't even see the plan.
They don't look
the subdivision plan.
Go pull it up.
I try to give that out at the closing.
Sure.
Not 100% of the time, but if I'm doing the closing, I try to give a copy of your subdivision plan because it shows the pins and the meets and bounds.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think a lot of title attorneys or companies do that. They're just kind of, and we do volume. So, people that are doing volume, they're just,
Right.
And, but it's good to know that and see that.
I agree.
I
agree. If you went to a builder, you'd get probably the plan of the lot.
Yep.
Right.
But if it's not new construction, you're not always getting
Or if you had a good agent, they might supply that too.
the agent, septic plan. I'm sure you guys get the septic plans.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, but not all agents are created equally. They just
Sure.
kind of blinded to that and just it just closes.
Go on to the next one.
It's very important to go with your eyes open on all that. I don't try to hide anything, when we come up with this.
Yeah, the more information, the better. The easier it is for you to move forward with that property. So one of the questions that I had for you is, the closing is the finish line. Everybody is focused on getting to the closing, getting everything done for the closing, and they've got their movers and all this other stuff. And then they come sit down at the table, and does the closing itself live up to the hype? Is there cake? Are there balloons?
Maybe not from an agent's point of view. I think from a buyer's point of view, it's usually a happy affair.
Oh, absolutely,
There are times when there's, people didn't move all their stuff out, so you
there's
get into
some
that.
tension.
But it's I did a lot of law, like criminal family law. I like real estate law because it's usually happy.
Right.
Nobody loves their divorce attorney.
right.
So I kind of look to that. But I mean, from an agent's perspective, you're working it until that day, and then it's sort of like, hey, this is it. It's not. Yeah, but. I think for a buyer, it's kind of a relief. They're focused on the move too, so the physical move.
Sure.
So a lot of times, 9 out of 10 people are just, where do I sign? They don't really want to get into the nitty gritty of it.
Where do
Where
I sign 80 times?
Yeah, exactly. But there are the buyers who want to read every line,
Hopefully you got them the package the day before.
We've had one last week, I think, like that Ken did. That was like brutal, but we knew in advance.
Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah,
exactly.
So you don't, you're always going to run into those people. And, they have a right to look at the documents and
of course,
it. Don't sign anything before you understand it. But again, most of these documents, there's a lot of them. You talked about that. They've only gotten heavier, not lighter.
Yeah, exactly.
Although there's a lot of lenders that are doing this hybrid thing, but there's still enough where they do a lot online.
So they're having the buyer sign some things in advance online?
So we've run into some lenders that do that. They do the closing disclosure, but then you get to the closing table and like you still got to sign all that stuff again, So it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
Believe me, I don't get paid by the pound.
Right.
so I like a streamlined, process, and we're really not there. I think, you see it on your end through the contracts and everything.
Right, we're doing almost everything is electronic signature.
Eventually go there, but there's a lot of fraud too in the industry. So that's why you have to have things notarized. Our office is pretty good now, especially with cash deals, about doing things I forget the name of it. DocuSign.
Yeah.
And really the only thing that has to be notarized, we actually scraped out notaries from a lot of these documents because we could do it through DocuSign. Just be more efficient. People in pandemic world.
Where am I going to find a notary?
Yeah, they don't want to come to closings.
Go to the bank.
There's some older folks in particular who are just,
so
they're
we can make that
really
happen.
taking the quarantine seriously as they should.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think the only document on the sell side that really needs to be notarized is the deed, obviously. We tend to have every document, like almost every document, have a notary clause. It doesn't need it,
Right.
On the closing package.
Just sort of appeared there one day and never came off.
Yeah. Well, for fraud, you could have a witness line and somebody could witness it too. But I mean, a lot of the documents are just kind of, they all probably have a reason in litigation somewhere. Hopefully nobody's making this up there might be a petition out there to make up documents. I'm sure there is. I always wonder.
Right.
But, we have these, right now we have 3 COVID forms that we have people sign. We're trying to streamline into one so we can get rid of that paper.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of duplication.
Yeah.
My favorite one is the name affidavit.
Right.
You know.
And people go crazy on that because, they'll have their father's name on there, and I'm on that. Yeah, my dad has bad credit. I don't want him on there, or son, or whatever.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And it's like, well, it came up in the credit report
somewhere along the line. Your name was spelled this way.
Putting yourself out to the world this way. It's just for the lender. So you don't claim you're not that. You don't sign as junior. You sign without junior, and somehow it shows up as junior, you don't have that. So that's probably certainly from litigation, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That somebody's tried that. I don't know how that would work, but
So how do you get assigned to a closing? How do you become the settlement agent?
Well, the initial process comes typically through you as agents are kind enough to use us as a resource for that. If it's a cash deal, especially. If there's a lender involved, then you're usually, you have the lender who will assign it, but they often will let the agent pick it. Sometimes people call us, customers, and ask, what are your fees? And we get it that way. It's probably less frequent. I'd say that happens less than 5% of the time.
Right.
So they'll shop us out because you can shop out title companies and, they give deals, so sometimes.
Well, you guys give a great deal for first-time buyers.
Yeah. So we try to, there's others that do that. So we're just trying to compete. And even a cash deal, we do pretty cheap.
You do. Yeah.
There's others that do, but you got to watch out because sometimes we're giving a $350 flat closing fee. We do require title insurance. Some places don't.
Right.
I don't think it's in the best interest of a cash buyer to not have title insurance.
Me either. No.
Because if it's
you just hand
it
off,
have to use it.
You just handed off all that money and
peace of mind.
And that piece of paper is what says that you own it.
And I always say even people are like, well, this is new construction or something, and it's like, well, you could have a contractor lien, and that could go for a resale too.
That has happened to one of my buyers.
So that's one definite reason not to have it because you're on your own. Some states are different, like Massachusetts, where the attorney certifies it a purchase title.
Right.
So that's more old school, I would say. Like you used to get attorney certificate of title. In New Hampshire, that's not the case if we're really representing a lender.
But in Massachusetts, they also do a quick claim, so the seller is not warrantying anything.
Yeah, I mean, that's the quick claim versus a warranty deed. That's a kind of an esoteric thing to most people.
It is to me.
But you get that in Maine and New Hampshire warranty deeds. Quick claims never been the thing in Mass, although I've seen them, but it's rare.
Yeah.
I think it's more out of a mistake or something.
Right. Yeah.
But again, a warranty gives that buyer the ability to go after prior owners.
Right.
The reality of doing that, or the practicality of doing that is probably nil because you have title insurance. So
exactly.
That's what you're going to go after.
That's what you're going to go after.
You're not going to go try to pursue Mr. Jones in Wisconsin.
Well, and if you go back in the chain of title, 90% of those people have passed away.
Yeah.
So
Depending how recent it is, but
right.
it's not practical to go sue prior owners, and that's your title insurance would be your first recourse anyway.
Yeah,
So that's another reason to get it. So,
I would not purchase anything without title
And
insurance.
again, what a lot of title companies are doing, and I'm not naming names, is doing a short search. So there's even more reason they don't even go back prior to the
They just
failures.
do a one-owner search. Yeah.
Bank failures, in
Right.
07, 08.
So they're going 5 or 10
so
years.
that
or
stuff is going to come back to roost, I believe, because there's a lot of, the title insurance companies that sort of allow that. They say you can rely on our policy. They're just, trying to be helpful there, but
We'll see.
yeah, but we're selling title, so
Yeah.
that's our thing. I want it to be a good title. Refinances might be a little different. We might do a shorter search there because we're really protecting the lender, not the person.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
When you sit down at the closing table with that thick stack, where do those documents come from?
Well, a lot of them come, I'd say 3/4 come from the lender. Don't quote me on that. And a quarter come from us.
Okay.
Our title company. So we have standard forms that we use, but a lot of them come from the lender. So the lender will send that to us, and then that's what we finalize.
And that's why on a cash sale it's so quick and easy.
Yeah, I mean, there's still enough to shake your fist at, but there's actually more for the seller on a cash deal than the buyer, which is crazy.
It is crazy, yeah.
Because there's federal forms that they're not illegal aliens, that kind of thing. So
so I was going to say, what are a couple of categories of the different types of forms that people will see at a closing from the buyer side?
When I sit down with people at a closing, I really say, there's a lot of documents here, probably 30 plus, and the big three is what I call, these are the most important documents. So you have your note, your mortgage.
Yeah.
I'm going to go thoroughly through that, or with you if you want me to, and the settlement statement.
Yep.
A closing disclosure. It's called an ALTA too now. So it's the old HUD settlement statement.
Is that like the American Land Title Association?
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I got it.
Good job.
I got it.
So it used to be the HUD settlement statement, and
It
now
still
it's
is to me.
Now it's
I know that. I still think of it that way.
Yeah, and that has both sides on it versus the seller seat closing disclosure and the buyer closing disclosure, which are separate for privacy purposes.
Okay.
So the lender sends the buyer's closing disclosure
That makes
in
sense,
advance. It used to be you get it the day or day of or day before, and that's where all hell broke loose. Now, people, I feel it's good because they know the numbers, and if they can contest them, still people show up. I never saw that, but it did get emailed.
But less surprises.
Yeah. So it's rare. So that's been a good thing, I think, for the industry. So the note and mortgage, and I tell people most of the other documents are generic or general. They just put your name and address, and everybody at a closing is going to sign these.
The same thing, yeah.
And they don't have any specifics really. They're like a compliance form, name affidavit. That's a little specific, but there's a proration agreement, which if something didn't get calculated correctly between the sides, it says that both sides will play nice in the sandbox, and, after the fact, and calculate that.
Well, and our first year tax bill is always an estimate, and then the second, the December one is always the final in New Hampshire.
In most towns, you got Concord, which is the quarterly.
Concord's quarterly,
I don't know if there's another town that's quarterly, but there used to be towns that were yearly, believe it or not. But I think everybody's now by.
But do people really go back and reprorate that?
I've had that happen twice, maybe.
Okay, yeah.
And it was when student education funding and everything, where there were big changes,
big swings, yeah.
And you have to be in a mid-month to make it count because it's a 6-month bill. If it's the beginning of the month, it's not gonna. It's only a few days. That kind of thing. So it's rare. It's rare.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't seen it much.
Yeah.
But stuff gets missed sometimes, like homeowners associations. Everybody's like, "There's no homeowners association," and then it turns out there's
it's $200 a year or something. Yeah.
So we have a statement on that they'll take care of it, but and that comes up a little more than the other thing.
Right. Yeah. You're right, because it's not so easy to get your hand on that bill.
Yeah.
Whereas you can call the town and get the tax bill.
Yeah, because it's self-run.
Right.
Or some condo associations are self-run. But usually we get that if it's a condo. Homeowners are tougher.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you. Let's talk a little bit about the mortgage and the note.
Okay.
So generically, we just use the word mortgage to mean I owe the bank money.
Right. Well, actually, the note is where you owe the bank. That's the promise to pay the contract, the note. Mm-hmm. People kind of lump the two and just think mortgage.
Yeah.
But there's two components. There's the note, which is not recorded and is the contract with the bank to pay per the terms.
That says you're going to pay once a month for 30 years or whatever.
15, yeah. And they're pretty standard because they're controlled by federal agencies. So, they all pretty much look the same in state by state, but, even uniformly.
And as a buyer, you certainly don't have any opportunity to change it.
I've had once, I've had a few, but...
Oh, dear, don't spread that around.
No, attempts to change it.
Oh, okay.
This many years ago, some lady shows up at a closing, like their tax advisor is like crossing out things, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, I do this all the time. I'm like, well, that's a private note, not a,
right, exactly.
institutional
not
note.
Not a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac.
You should have done that before we got to the closing table. So it doesn't happen that much anymore, but, it's a take it or leave it, but, you want people to understand it. You don't want it to be like, sign here. And I think I've been to closings on the sell side where I represent the seller where that happens, where people are just, sign here, sign, and no explanation.
No explanation,
So we try to, I have my, I call it a shtick on each form that I give people, and especially if they're, really into it, then you can kind of nip that in the bud a little.
And the note not only
it.
says you need to pay, but it says you need to keep it insured, you need to keep it in good condition. Like that's collateral
Actually,
for the loan.
that's more in the mortgage.
Oh, see, I got it wrong.
So the note is a 2-page, 3-page thing that just says I'm paying X per month for so many years.
Yeah.
The mortgage has probably 30 plus clauses that say you're going to pay your taxes, pay your insurance. Usually the lender often will escrow or hold that money for the buyer.
Yeah.
You can waive out of that, but sometimes there's a cost to that.
Right.
If you put enough down, sometimes they'll allow it without cost. So that depends on your lender. But, so that kind of, they talk about you paying your taxes and insurance, but the lender usually takes care of that. In cash deal, you don't have that because
you don't have
mortgage.
That, right. Yeah.
So, and then they can transfer the loan to whoever, if they want to, under the same terms of the note, the contract. They can't change the note.
Right.
So they can't all of a sudden call the loan in if you're not in default.
Sure.
The note.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it talks about that in the mortgage. They can assign it freely. You have no right as a borrower to just sign it. And actually, there's what's called a due on transfer clause.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So, or due on sale or due on transfer clause. So if we get into this a lot lately where people are deeding it into LLCs and trusts. I do it for people, but I warn them, hey, one, you can be defaulting on your loan.
Yeah.
They can call it in.
Yeah.
And if, who knows, that could happen. Nationwide lenders don't tend to look at that stuff, but you never know. And so you're supposed to get the consent.
Right.
Of the lender to do that.
That's
a process, so it's not easy, depending on who the lender is. And then, so there's a due on transfer clause, but there are some exemptions, like people worry about deeding to a spouse.
Right.
Do we have to get consent of the lender now to that? There's a federal law that protects that. So, and also to a revocable estate planning trust that you're the beneficiary of.
Yeah, because we're working with Justin in your office to set up our trust, and so we're going to be.
He may tell you to get consent, but I believe it's exempt under the federal law. Hey, that's just an argument between two partners in a law firm. He's very careful.
I didn't mean to get.
He's very careful.
Well, it's okay. I can ask. For
I don't
consent.
do estate planning.
I can ask for consent. I'll probably just never hear back.
Yeah. If it's Bank of America, that's what I think.
Right. Exactly.
One of the big ones.
And then. What about when are we actually closed?
Well, technically, delivery of the deed is enough to call that a technical closing. You own the property.
This is what I think too.
And it's the practice is a little different in Massachusetts, where everything has to get on record.
Right.
That's just their practice. I think as a matter of law, delivery of the deed is fine.
Yeah.
Well, when I read the purchase and sale agreement, that's what it says.
Yeah, and in New Hampshire, things get recorded after.
Yeah.
You're not waiting around for disbursements of checks to the seller and proceeds. So it's not always like that, but that seems to be more the title company practice. And it's similar wherever you go. Other states I can't really speak for, but I think out west it's all escrow states.
Yeah.
You can even see the other side. Everybody shows up and does it.
At all different times.
Yeah.
But just most people don't really understand this. You obviously do, and realtors do, because we go through it on a fairly regular basis. But, what is this whole recording of the deed?
Again, that could differ depending on who you're dealing with, because in the old world, we would have to go to the registry
Right.
to actually record the deed, and still some old-time attorneys do that.
Yep.
But there is now, for many years, ability now through recording systems to record online with the registry. So it really just gets emailed to the registry. They look it over. They kick it back if it's got issues, and then it gets recorded pretty same day, usually, if it's early enough in the day. So it's a fairly easy, no longer have to go close at registries.
And then it becomes public record.
Right.
And there's a book and page number that anybody can go look it up.
The deed
right?
and the mortgage and whatever else. Yeah.
So who does that protect? Like why are deeds recorded and made public record? Yeah.
It's the system of public notice. So, like, some states might be different, but I think most states there's a recording, as far as I know.
Yep.
And then for lenders and mortgages, they know who's got a lien on the property, so they're not behind it.
Yep.
So you can actually do a title search.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. You can do a title search.
So it's a very, it's from time gone by, but I mean, it's always been done that way to protect third parties.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's public record.
Kind of, they call it race notice, so that you're racing to the registry to record.
Oh, right.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a term that they use. So
because you want to beat any liens.
Yeah, exactly. So
right.
Even up to recording, we're searching.
You're right.
Because something could go on, and we have to stop the closing now. If we had dispersed.
We run into that a lot with short sales, where they might have a debt with a credit card or something like that, and as we're going through the process, all of a sudden there's been a lien placed on the property for an $8,000 balance or something like that.
Yeah, I think on short sales we try to not disperse until we're on record, just because of that issue. Yeah. If something is up, I've had a few deals where we knew something was going on, so we'd say, hey, we're not dispersing until we're on record. Yeah. If somebody's flagging it in some way.
And every now and then we'll run into an IRS lien or something like that.
And I believe that's why Massachusetts has the way they do it, because they want to avoid, that issue. They
don't want to unravel the closing.
Because there's some liability that if we disperse before we record, then somebody could put an attachment on, and when we record, it's going to be an issue, and you got to go get back the check, or go after the people. So,
because at that time that lien is now belongs to the buyer because the deed's in their name.
Yeah, so conservative attorneys recommend don't disperse until you're on record. Title insurance protects us on that.
Okay.
For as long as we update it, reasonably before the recording. So because they understand that the practice is now very fast paced.
It is.
And holding up a check till you're on record is not, good.
Well, particularly when
it's a business side of it.
We have a seller who is going to sell in the morning and then purchase their new home that same day, and all their stuff is on a truck.
Right. So you're not going to wait to get on record. And we've had problems sometimes recording things like out of country because they notarize and they have ribbons and bows and, and it's not interpreted. So we try to get that in front.
Sure.
Be proactive with that because it has been an issue.
I had a seller once in Singapore, and they went to the U.S. Embassy to get their stuff notarized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was interesting.
And if it's not translated, that's a problem. So there's a whole process, and it's painful on our end. Yeah. I don't think the regular people want to know about that.
No, they probably don't want to know about that.
But I do think in Massachusetts, there's what's called recorded land and registered land.
Yes,
for your mass
registered land
buyers and people listening. I don't know if this goes over there.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, so registered land in some counties, fortunately not in the north side of Boston, but some south of there, do not allow online recording if it's registered land. Right. So we just had a recent one where it was a refinance and we couldn't get it on there, and it was like the guy wanted his money, and it was just a whole to-do, Yeah.
So
because you had to send it in, you can't even go there now in pandemic times.
Right. And they're going to get to it when they get to it.
So they was getting like money to do renovations, and it was holding up everything.
So I've sold 2 properties in Mass that were registered land, and the title or the deed actually just contains the whole title search. It kind of gives the whole chain.
Well, there's a certificate of title, but you still record a separate deed.
Okay.
But there, in the title search, there is that certificate of title with all the encumbrances. It's safer, like it's more regulated.
Oh, yeah.
Like in registered land, they have to review everything. We ran into some problems in the past where we show up at the registered land desk and they're like, "We're not recording this."
Oh, dear.
So now we learn,
Right.
get it in advance.
Let them review it.
Yeah, review it because they're very all over that.
Particular,
versus recorded land is less so.
Well, registered
Yeah.
land, I think the registry of the court is actually
It's
vouching
a
for
land
it.
court. You know, so,
land court. So it's
Yeah.
actually vouched for.
Yeah. So it's a little different there. Maine is similar to New Hampshire. If anyone's cares about Maine, I like Maine. So
Yeah, I do too. So we've got a few more questions but
Yeah.
before we get to that, Brian, you want to tell us how the market is
How's the market?
and how I need to go door to door and just beg people to sell their houses?
I mean, well, it's January 14th,
I believe so.
2021.
Yeah,
Banner year, as everyone knows in real estate.
which was completely unexpected.
Yeah, I mean, if you
with COVID,
if you look
Yeah.
back in February or March, and somebody said, "Oh, we're going to have the best year ever,"
I would not have.
No.
Well, in January, we were strong
Business
right
as
out of the
usual,
gate.
yeah.
But as soon as COVID hit, we thought it was going to be
but
like
the inventory
end.
was still very low then too, so it was still a struggle.
January for us was similar to most Januaries. This January,
Was it?
it's gangbusters. You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's really like people are dying to buy, and it's that's not a good term. Trying to sell, but I mean,
Should I mention your probate?
they're coming from
Everywhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
New York is big, and the
Right.
Atlantic states, and they realize remote work is
Right.
a
We
new
might as well
thing,
let
the
them
game
do that.
changer.
So they want quality of
So I
life
just
and
think
cost of living.
It's just going to continue,
I think so, too.
So hopefully, I think that'll be the case. But what are they going to buy?
Yeah.
Prices are going to
Right.
get driven
So,
up.
so everybody knows how the market's been. I mean, it's been a great year, banner year. But when even us, we see it. It's in front of us every day. But still, you look at these year-end numbers, and it blows you away.
Well, how do I know?
what
You
do
got to
they
tell me the
compare?
numbers.
Well, for instance, the month supplies, which is measured by how fast you can sell the current inventory, is down to 0.9 months, which means
Less
if
than
you
a month.
took all the inventory
Wow.
right now and no more inventory came on the market at the current sales rate, how long would it take to sell all those homes?
About 28
It'd be
days.
less than a month
Yeah.
for all of New Hampshire,
Wow,
which is just crazy.
Crazy.
And
that's statewide.
and that's down 43% from last January. So the inventory was incredibly low last January. It was, what was it, 1.8 months last
yeah.
January.
So it's half of that.
It's just crazy.
Textbook inventory is supposed to be about 6 months worth of supply. That's considered a balanced market.
Right.
I think that's a little bit outdated, and I would go more towards 3 months right now because
Okay.
that goes back to like when Brian and I first started and things were not electronic and they didn't move as fast and people didn't have all the houses on the
transit.
internet and all
How
that.
did we get by?
I know. But still.
I love to go back to those days.
There you go.
and
I'm old school.
but for there to be less than 1 month of inventory in the whole state.
Right.
It's
Now
just
that's
amazing.
That means some areas that are more popular are really even lower.
Of
Correct.
course.
Because there are areas north that are
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
like higher.
But the volume up north is so low that really southern New Hampshire is going to be most of the stats come from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was, so for single family homes, record sales, highest median price ever, sales volume, everything hit record highs in 2020. And you look, we were in a pandemic.
And we were in a pandemic.
What's the median price over last
It
year?
is now up to $335 for the
Statewide.
for the
Yeah.
entire state.
Yeah.
And what was it last
I
year?
don't have that right here, but if I remember correctly, it was around 300.
Yeah, it was around 300. Yeah.
So
The Mass is probably even bigger.
Oh, yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
yeah. You're a
the
first time
price-
buyer in Mass, you're spending $500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a
That's what
A modest home.
1,100
That's
square
my nephew just bought.
1,100 square foot, three bedroom ranch. in
Melrose.
Wilmington. Melrose, yeah.
6+, So
Yeah.
it's like,
But you're also seeing when you do these closings, the mortgage payments on like a $335,000 home are very reasonable.
Yeah, so I mean, the rates are so low that it's driving that to some degree too.
Yeah.
I don't see that changing for
Right.
a while.
No.
And plus, you can't find
This year
anything to
anyway.
rent anyway.
I don't think there's any forecast that the rates are going to go up phenomenally. It's so low.
No,
They've been at record
the
lows
next-
for so long.
yeah.
We just assumed they'd go up, but they haven't.
I think it would if we didn't have the pandemic going on.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't think the government's
No,
going to
they're
start
not going to
tweaking
mess.
that.
They're not going to mess with the housing market.
So hopefully it'll still have legs. It's just where's the inventory going to come from?
Right. Well,
foreclosures.
my theory is that the baby boomers are still sitting pretty in their house. I know you sold yours.
Yeah.
But a lot of us.
I should have waited 2 years.
I know.
We got $100,000 more, at least.
Exactly.
Hindsight's 2020.
My wife still won't forgive me.
Oh, it's all your fault.
That's how all marriages work.
I bought
She
her.
had no
I
say.
bought her another place on the beach, so she's.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So when we have a buyer come to the closing, what do they need to do to be prepared?
Well, again, working with their agent, like great guys, great team like you, making sure they got all their ducks in a row with financing and those kind of things. From a title perspective, again, we're willing to share as much information. It's hard to do that proactively because you got so much happening.
Mm-hmm.
But I like to share the title information, especially if there's something strange.
A little
going on.
strange. going on,
Like covenants and things like that.
Yeah.
I presume you guys are pretty good. I know you are about giving covenants, but not all
Yes.
agents are. So
Yeah.
they should make
And
sure.
we'll go look them
and
up on
covenants,
NH deeds.
again, if you're not familiar with those restrictions in the neighborhood, they're not always on the deed, the last deed.
No.
So the title search is what's going to pull that up. A lot of
Right.
people these days, it just happens that, closings happen, transactions happen, and they drop things from the deed when they probably shouldn't. And I'm all about putting all the info in the deed.
Right, because the deed will just say, as described on the previous deed, and then as described on the previous deed.
Or the plan.
and
reference
then,
plan,
Or
yeah.
reference a plan. Yeah.
And the plan itself could have things in it.
It could have references.
I just
Absolutely.
went through, we're going through this multi-million-dollar deal on the lake,
Mm-hmm.
and it had all kinds of easements and driveways.
Oh, lake properties.
Fortunately,
yeah.
the seller's attorney knew that area because our title came back. I'm like, we need
Yeah.
releases of all this stuff.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
And he's like, no, this is it. So we finally figured it out, but I was like clamoring for a release from some neighbor down the road,
Right.
But he did not like that.
Yeah.
So he explained it, but a regular title search, unless you're in the depth
You
of
wouldn't
it,
know,
you
yeah.
have to go back sometime,
Yeah, we just sold a lake property, and it's a private road, and there's just easements all over the place between all the houses.
And neighbors can get nasty.
And then if you have
it's one of those
docks-
things that date back to when things were very casual, and then
Sure.
slowly they got documented, but maybe not all documented the same. Or,
And anything waterfront, you're supposed to, if it's septic, you're supposed to get a waterfront site
The site assessment,
We don't
yep.
get involved with that because
Right.
it should be when you get signed
supposed to be
up,
prior to P&S,
but it
yeah.
usually doesn't happen always then. So we're trying to keep our eyes on that. And there's docks, sometimes boathouses. This one had a boathouse. Those are supposed to be permitted.
Dock permits,
and that's
absolutely,
not
yeah.
public record often. This one was.
I would
but-
recommend those be recorded.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
record them when people have them?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
would, but
yeah.
they're not always. And then you have to go to the administration, the agency,
yeah.
DES,
Yeah.
to find that. And it's hard to find sometimes. And anytime you convert, it's not, we don't insure docks and boats because they're on lakes, public lakes. So,
Right.
the state can make
Because
people move that.
the shoreline and the lake itself is actually public.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So even if
For the
you
most
have
part, I believe,
waterfront,
unless it's a really small pond or
right.
something, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are other issues that are offside. So, if the buyer's savvy, they sometimes know this stuff. Permits, again, I think they should check with the town and look at the file. It's a public file. Make sure especially if there were additions or renovations done or decks put in or pools, making sure that's all, permitted.
Sure.
Often people do their own thing, so.
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Live free or die does not apply to permits.
Or Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so,
or Massachusetts.
so the more due diligence there, because that's not really part of the title search unless it comes up in the title search, and then we make you aware of it. But
When people bring their funds to closing,
yes,
they usually will either wire them or get a bank check, right?
yes.
They're not bringing cash.
I've had people do that. I've had people come with a regular check. I'm like, no.
Suitcase?
We know where the buyer lives, but it's still,
It's got to be liquid funds.
It's not going to be, even a bank check, believe it or not, doesn't really clear. So that's why we like to wire.
Right.
But wire has, a lot of fraud around it
A lot
these
of fraud
days.
around
So people
it, yeah.
get gun shy
I can
about
imagine.
that. And so, we'll take a bank check, but if it's a large amount, that bank check is not clearing. Ours clear in a day, but it's not
Right.
instantaneous.
And you're funding the seller, right?
Yeah,
then and
yeah.
there.
So you're using
Right.
other funds.
But you're
technically.
not. It's
yeah.
commingling. You're not supposed to do that. Yeah.
Our bank does clear it if we especially go in there, because of
Okay.
our relationships. But
Sure.
But that's another thing that the buyer should just know, that we usually like to get funds wired in, preferably versus a bank check.
I know cash you usually
Yeah.
like to get it the day before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, just because so there's no mishap or something,
No
and it doesn't
issues,
come through.
exactly.
And if they have if they don't have a brick and mortar bank, that could Merrill Lynch or something. That's
Right.
a process because
The
they won't.
Ing Bank.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
there's a
might
lot
not
of people who don't
wire
have brick.
funds
Yeah.
unless they're in person, and
Mm-hmm.
some places don't have. I think they're opening a Chase in New Hampshire though.
Okay. Oh, that's good.
In Bedford, I think
Well,
that's on a
and
branch.
I very rarely use paper checks anymore, but
Yeah.
I've had buyers who don't even own a checkbook
Yeah,
because they, so when it's time to write the P&S, they're like, well, I don't pay anything by check.
Venmo.
Exactly.
Do you do that?
PayPal.
We don't, but we do have a system through the office deposit link
okay.
where they can
Credit cards?
electronically
No.
pay it. Not a credit card.
Yeah.
Some title companies I know will have the buyers bring that bank check
Yeah.
made payable to the title company, and others will have it made payable to the buyer.
To me, it doesn't matter because if they sign it over, it's the same
Same
thing.
difference, yeah.
But if it's made payable to I think we tell people Monarch.
I think you do, yeah.
because just in case, like it's made payable to two people and that person's not there or something,
To
it's just
endorse it,
safer.
yeah.
Safer probably, but people get weird about that too. So
Well, and right now, especially with the pandemic,
Yeah.
I find people are really, it's like a special trip to go to the bank to get the bank
Sure.
check, and so
you have
I
to do
just
it through
tell
a
them,
drive-through usually, right?
I'm like, if you need to, if you're unsure about the amount, just round it up. The title company can cut you back a check for the difference.
Yeah.
That's easier now because
Small
you guys aren't
money-
really traveling.
Small money, we even take a little check, that's if
Right,
it's short.
or bring a
Yeah.
your own personal
as long as it's
checkbook.
not big money.
Yeah.
And we'll wire to sellers too, but we have to be real careful about that because of wire fraud.
Right.
So our person in the office calls them even after they get the form that we have them fill out. We want it in person because if it's a signed form,
I
because
agree.
if we don't get that, who knows who filled it out. We did have an issue with a payoff a while ago
On a mortgage. Okay.
where it was fraud, and Wells caught it. It was
Okay.
a short sale,
Ooh.
and some lady tried to get the money, and it was like Wells caught it somehow,
Wow.
which
And
You would
Wells
think, how
would-
the hell do Wells do that?
I know.
I know, exactly.
So we were thankful, but I mean, we have insurance for that, but
Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah.
So speaking of which, how has COVID affected the closing procedures?
Well, like I spoke of, a lot of it we're doing. We're not having parties typically sit with each other, and sometimes they don't even come in at all because like
I've had a lot of sellers do remote
we
signing.
can do remote, even
Yeah.
buyers. Sometimes we do remote as on a cash deal. It's not the way I like to do business, but because it's nice having the people meet each other. But that's
Sure.
kind of gone by the wayside a little.
Yeah.
I think that'll come back. Maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Well,
it
we
is-
just don't know when.
Well, and you're not really traveling for closings anymore. You're doing it out of your office.
I do travel. I mean, a lot of companies don't want to do that just to control the environment. In the beginning, I was doing a lot of car closings.
You were doing driveway closings,
which I
know.
liked because it's and I offer that to people, but even like on refinances and stuff, because they're in their own car, they're comfortable with that environment,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
and it's a refinance. They have 3 days to look, so we'll go through the car window.
Yeah, you give them a clipboard.
and
Yeah.
we were doing that initially too with purchases, and I was fine with that. But now we're doing more in the lobbies and
Yep.
not where we have good air in there and everything. So.
Just in the lobby.
Not in our office. No, we have air machines, whatever, ventilators.
and it's not done very much, but there is the ability to actually notarize over like a Zoom call.
We haven't done that.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't done that. The lenders don't allow us.
Right.
There's
Sure.
it depends what state you're in, I guess. Some states may have done that. I think some companies are doing it. I don't know how, but our title insurance companies haven't let us. So I don't know what they're doing, but
Yeah, and they
mean,
want you to see that person's license.
Well, technically, under state law, you have to be in the presence of the person signing to notarize.
Right.
I don't know why a video wouldn't be the presence, but I guess,
the
you don't
law is
know
all
if
about
somebody
those
has
words, right?
an arrow in the back, so it's in the room, kind of, there's no duress and that sort of thing. So
Right.
there could be claims like that, I'm sure
Yeah.
people getting out of that, squirming out of their
That's true.
obligations.
That's true. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the process has changed. I don't think it's been terrible, but how do you guys feel about it?
I think you guys have done a great job.
Yeah.
is what
Now
I
it's
think.
routine. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really working well.
I mean, people tend to just want to, once they get to the closing. I mean, I like to make it, a happy event, culmination of all this, and I feel like there is some relief when they get to the table, but they're also focused on just signing.
They want to unpack their stuff.
If they don't already live there, we've had a few where they're tenants that are buying.
Right.
That's different. So they're more chatty and relaxed.
No, it's all about the moving truck.
So, they're less concerned about the legal stuff. So early in the process, if you feel like clients are like that, certainly connect them with us or get the questions answered. And you have done that. So
absolutely.
we try to be available for whatever, we don't want to proactively get people crazed, but,
Right.
But, I just think some diligence on their part is good, and getting the plans and getting things,
It's what they purchased,
Yeah. I mean, the seller's easier because all they have to really come to the closing with is a deed and make sure they have their information for wiring if that's what they want.
Make sure they have a photo ID.
So it's usually a breeze for them, I would think.
They're happy because
it's emotional.
They're getting money,
Unless they've been there 30 years and raised the kids, then you get that emotional.
But usually one party's happy they're getting the keys, the other party's happy they're getting the money.
And hopefully they moved all their stuff out.
Exactly.
We've had many of those, it's
well,
crazy.
You got to do that final
rough.
walkthrough the day before, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Well, we have used up our time.
This has been great.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you, guys.
Andy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for getting real with us about closing and getting to the finish line in real estate.
Music courtesy of the Eric Lindbergh Trio. Please visit his website at www.ericlindberghworld.com. Jennifer and Brian are licensed to practice real estate in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. Brian is also a certified general appraiser in New Hampshire. They are not lawyers, accountants, home inspectors, or therapists. Real estate customs and rules may be different in your area. Each Keller Williams Realty office is independently owned and operated. The Realtor name is trademarked to members of the National Association of Realtors. If you are currently under contract with a real estate agent, this is not intended as a solicitation. Views expressed on this podcast by Jennifer may not be shared by Brian and vice versa, nor are they necessarily the views of Keller Williams Realty.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21, Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.